And hey, everybody, what's up? It's Pete Thorn. How's it going? Welcome to the show. I was so excited about this new setup I had today, which was a big failure, using a different camera and stuff like that. But evidently, it just didn't work. So I'll do a little bit of testing this week. You might see me show up live a couple times, doing some tests with the new setup and stuff, and I'll figure it out. But that's so odd. I did a live stream the other day, Facebook Live, with Jennifer Batten, talking about our Guitar Cloud Symposium event that we're doing on the 20th, and it worked perfectly for that. So I don't know, strange. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Anyways, what's up, everybody? What happened this week? Any exciting news out there? What did I do? Videos for the Eventide micro pitch pedal. That was fun. Worked really well. They get that 80s, 90s Van Halen thing, but it's also a great delay. I think there's like a lot of folks maybe don't realize all the things that pedal can do. And there was some confusion about it. Like, is it also a delay? Can you do micro pitch and delay at the same time? Sort of. You can't get the micro pitch on like a 0 millisecond delayed sound as well as a delayed sound. So I know that's confusing, I guess, but basically it does the micro pitch thing where you can pitch up or down up to plus 50 or minus 50 cents on either side. And then you can delay that micro pitch. So it's sort of like a modulated delay at that point, except it's a still modulated delay because the delay time of the micro pitch thing isn't changing unless you want it to. So you can modulate the micro pitch. Does that make sense? So there's like, I don't know, the rate and depth, LFO or whatever they call it, in there, so that you can modulate it if you want to. So I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Leroy says that micro pitch was certainly Van Halen. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. What else did I do? Oh, you have video for these Vox pedals that have the new tube thing in it, which I find interesting. They've been out for a little while. They're not like brand new. They've been out for, I don't know, something like a year, I think. And they're all vastly different. I mean, there's an AC31 that's called the Mystic Drive, I do believe, and then the Copperhead is the Marshally one, and then there's a kind of dumbly one, and then there's a high gain one that's sort of rectifier, Soldano, something like that. And they do sound really good. One of the unique things about them is there's a switch on them that allows you to modify them to work in front of an amp or as a preamp into your amp's effects return, which sounds, markedly different. So some people will take distortion pedals and plug them right into an amp's effects return. When you listen to the difference in sound, though, of the pedal, it gets way sort of bigger and brighter sounding and stuff when you put it in the preamp mode. Just more sauce. I don't know. Stuff that you wouldn't want if you're running into an amp because it's already got a preamp. But anyways, and then also the ability to turn on a cab sim so you can run direct. So it's the ultimate fail safe. That's pretty nice. Having that ability to run right into a board at a gig or something, or just use it to practice. So yeah, some folks are asking, where's Richie? So Richie's going to join in probably about 20 minutes now, something like that. Yeah. Generally speaking, when I have guests, I like to make it kind of loose when they join. I generally say like 15 minutes to a half an hour into the show or something. Just feel like basically to make sure that, because I know this stuff is stressful, like the technical thing, making sure it's all working and that your camera's cool and everything. So it's easier than if they can just kind of get their thing together and because there's a little bit of a process getting hooked up on the StreamYard thing. Obviously things can happen. I'd rather have that happen to me like it just did than have a guest there and kind of stressed and stuff like that about it. So it just seems to work. So Richie will be joining pretty soon. And let's see what else we got here. What are you guys talking about in the chat? More sauce, please, says Poo Ninja. Where's Mr. Kotzen? Says Michelle. Yeah, he's coming on in 20 minutes or so, I think. Actually, he just texted me, and let's make sure that he's not got something going on or something. He says, you're good. Something isn't right on your feed. Yes, sir. I had an issue. Got it all sorted now. See, that's embarrassing. you can do basically 168 shows or whatever it's been, something like that. I don't know what I am today, something like that. But then, of course, the one day you've got guests on, it screws up. Well, I tried to make it better with my new camera setup here. I've always had issues, though, to be honest. Anytime I'm using an external, I've given it a shot a couple times, like external webcam situation, tried to dial it in and stuff, but it never seems to work. So I always come back to this, which works, right? Why switch it up? Okay, what else we got here? Let's see here. Let's see. This fella's asking about, what's my knees hurt? It's fun for me. For some pedals that have tubes. Tubes are like a mystery. Yeah, these Korg pedals, they have the new tube thing in them, which I don't really understand, but I actually hit up Kevin Sir and said, should we look at this? Because, you can buy them and develop products around them. I think that's their intention. They're quite expensive, though, to get them from Korg. That's the only thing. So I thought, is there anything to this? Like, should we be looking into these to maybe, look at putting into something, some sort of design a circuit around them, see how they sound. But the reality is it's a little cost prohibitive. Like you could almost just do, he said, well, for the cost of this, I could do basically a real tube and, just put a, whatever voltage doubler in there and get it up to, or whatever it is to get to 250 volts that you need to run a tube properly. He said basically like for less than the cost of this thing, I can do all that. And I was like, oh, well, at that point, is it interesting? There is a savings on space in the pedal for sure. And of course, I don't think there's the thermal issues with running a tube and all that. And, that can become a thing in a pedal. But anyways, Todd Roy says, that was a great talk with Jennifer Batten on IG the other night. Yeah, that just kind of was a rollicking loose, good. Oh, Richie's giving me a call. Let's say hello. Hey, man. Oh, turn down your volume there for 1 second. Richie's just having a little issue joining, so I'm going to help him out here. Are you in the StreamYard screen? And I just clicked the link, but the link you gave me is the YouTube thing, so I'm watching you. Email you sent. I don't see anything other than this YouTube link. Okay, that's odd. Just 1 sec here. I'm going to get the link for you and send it to you right now. Sorry, folks. We're super pro around here this morning. As you saw, I had an issue with the stream, like right out of the gate. But my folks are good. They'll stick around for a minute here. Okay, sending you the link. Okay, there we go. So you should have it in your email now. Okay. You actually don't need to, but you can if you want. Yeah, not necessary because it's got a cancellation thing. Yep. Yeah, and you just want to make sure you have YouTube off. Like, don't have the YouTube link open. Yeah, I think it might be on for something else. Okay. Yeah, like for some other program. Maybe like a restart or something. All right, I'm going to restart my computer. I'm sorry for this chaos, but I'll restart my computer. No worries. I'll see you in a sec. Okay. Oh, folks, we're having a tough one this morning with our comedy of errors, but that's okay. I had an issue. Richie's going to restart. He's almost there. I saw him show up in my little control panel, but I'm just having issues with the cam. We'll get it. It's funny. Jennifer Batten, I gave her like a little ribbing the other day because like when she first came on my show, it was like she had this chaos going on, for 5 minutes of when we were trying to figure out. This is like back in March of last year or something like that. She was one of the first guests I had on, I think. And then the other day she showed up and it was like she's got a background and she's got her camera all sorted out and the whole thing. I'm like, wow, like everything's changed, in this year of like figuring out our technical scenes for live streaming and stuff, Stealth Parrot saying Jennifer's so fun. She's great. I love her. She's one of the first people I ever met in LA, and she's so awesome. And we're going to be doing that event. It's a week, I think. It's on the 20th, next Saturday. So check out guitarcloudsymposium.com for sure if you guys are interested. And if you can swing it. I've already gotten I've learned from just chatting with the other folks that are going to be involved, like Kat and everybody that's going to be on there is Mundo, and everybody's got all this knowledge about, different scenes that I don't know anything about. The theater world, and also, we've got great info coming in from the business side too, like about booking your band and stuff, and also just how to kind of advocate for yourself as a musician. If you're looking for work, you're looking for a new gig, you're looking for, an audition, whatever. And then let's say you get that far, and now you've got to negotiate and kind of advocate for yourself. And that's the one thing that I've found with my life is like, I need to be my own advocate, because every new gig is a new negotiation every single time. There's no union for the touring players and the sidemen, or if you're in a cover band, it's like you're advocating for yourself, and it's like you just gotta be up on those skills kind of. Otherwise you end up sort of shooting yourself in the foot, I think. So anyway, okay. Let's see. Who else we got here? And then somebody up there in the super chat, top chat. It's Christopher Butler. What's up? Let's see. How about the one-handed insane song video Steve Vai released the other day? Okay, that was like, as I said I put a YouTube comment, and I said, like, I have so many questions. I just is he using a sustainer, and how is it so clean? Because he's not apparently muting. That was really odd to me, without being able to mute with your fretting hand at all. And then, so any muting's coming from this hand. And it looked like the strings were kind of wide open. I was so fascinated with how it was so clean, just exceptional. So that was amazing. And it's amazing that he's still an innovator, and he's so inspirational. I mean, at like, he's 16 now. And just continues to seem as young and vital and like inspirational as, I just can't believe it. It's just really inspiring. So I'd love to talk with him again. Because, I've had that interview with him a little while ago, and I feel like, just like the path he's been on for the last year has been really fascinating, with how he's done the whole, as we all been kind of locked down and everything, his whole foray into social media and how successful that's been and how amazing it is, to have his knowledge, and he's so giving with his time and his information, and his, it's like having this mentor on the internet. It's been amazing. So anyway, I was really blown away by it. Nick Purdy's up there as well in the super chat, and he says, my big question. There's Richie. I see him now. So Richie, just hang 1 second. I'll just answer Nick's question here, and then we'll get you into the stream. My big question is, as a new Helix user using a Helix floor, should I still use an interface, or does the Helix suffice? I think you're good using the Helix if you don't have anything else. So you can use it as a USB interface, and it'll work just great. And then Nico says, please briefly discuss your thoughts on how the number of springs affect a trim feel. Well, definitely 5 springs gives it that stiffer, thing. I'm a 3-spring kind of person, and 2's too few. So for me, but I'm a fan of the 3-spring, and, there's different configurations. Some people think that having one angle and the other one, just depends. But okay, let's get Richie in the stream in a second here. Oh, he's just setting something up there. So 1 more second. And Dwayne is up there in the super chat as well. And he's just saying, hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right, let's say hi to Richie. Hey, man.
Hey.
Yeah.
There.
What's happening?
Wow, I had computer chaos, and now somehow I tried to post this on my Facebook, and it's like telling me I'm restricted. That's like chaos, man.
It's the morning that we're having,
Yeah.
Yeah, same deal for me. I
Yeah.
had all this new shit set up with like a new camera and light and everything. And it's like, yeah, I'm really excited that, I spent like $150 getting the right converter, cable, and then it doesn't work this morning.
Yeah, and now I'm looking at this and I can see like I'm blown out because I'm in front of a window here. Let's see if this helps. Now you can see it better. Yeah.
There you go. Well, how are you?
I'm all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Doing good?
Yeah, can't complain.
Man, the new music that's been coming out is amazing. And the videos and lyric video that came out the other day and everything, I'm just loving it with Adrian.
Thanks. Yeah, the our PR girl said that we did over 100 interviews so far. So
Wow.
every day I'm talking to somebody, I'm getting kind of like delirious.
We'll make this one easy.
And then I hang up and I'm like, God, did I say something stupid? I hope I didn't say anything stupid.
So to be in that mode and then have all the technical stuff this morning, I know it's frustrating, isn't it? It's stressful. I mean, when my stuff was messing up right now, I'm just like, I feel this anxiety, like this.
Yeah, you're exposed.
It's like being on stage and your amp's not working or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, oh God, yeah.
Yeah. How did the collaboration with Adrian come about? I find that so interesting. Like, have you guys been friends for a long time?
Yeah, we've been friends for about 8 or 9 years, and they'd have get-togethers over at the house, like a holiday kind of thing, like around Christmas usually.
Yeah.
And we'd always end up in the room there jamming, just playing cover tunes. And then more recently, somebody suggested, you guys should try and write something together. So like, all right, let's try it. And I think the first thing that we actually wrote was that song "Running," which was the 3rd single we just put out with the lyric video.
Okay.
Yeah. And then from there, I think "Scars" was like the 2nd song, and then we just kind of got to it, Well,
it's amazing stuff. I mean, what was the recording process like? Like, was that something you had to do remotely, or were you able to get together?
No, we were together. This wasn't a COVID record, thankfully. But I it's funny. He just came back to LA. They just flew in yesterday, and so we've been talking while he's been in the UK. And then I thought, well, I'm going to call him, see if he landed okay. And I pulled up his LA number, and I saw the last message was like almost a year ago to the day. Very crazy. And we were talking about, he was talking about where they were going to go because the lockdowns were starting. And I think they were talking about going like to New Zealand or somewhere for something. And we were texting about whether he should go home or what. And so I just pulled that up on my phone, to call him because I knew he was back here. I was like, that is kind of weird. Like the timing. The last text that we had on that phone was March 14th, and today is March 14th. Isn't that weird?
That is really weird.
Yeah, I think that's really strange. And we talked all through 2020, but on a different phone line, So yeah. But the recording process was easy. I mean, it's just the two of us in the studio. We had Nico come in and play drums on a song, and then my friend Tal played on a couple songs of drums. I'm talking about drums.
Yeah.
But I played drums on most of the record. We traded off on the bass guitar, and so it was, one of those kind of, two guys just in the studio making it work kind of vibe,
How did you find with him that you guys had like a musical kind of synergy? Like, what was the where you're like, oh, this is interesting. Like, we share a something.
Yeah. Well, it happened pretty. I knew what he was about, because we've known each other for a while, and I knew that he was a great blues player and that he had a great voice, and so that element, I knew I would connect with him. We're both fans of like Paul Rodgers and Free and that kind of music, and so I knew I had a connection there. But when I think it was the song, Running came out, I thought this is really cool. But when we did Scars, I thought, well, we're really onto something here. It's just something different, and it was almost like I've said this a bunch of times, but it was almost like a friendly tennis match. We're just trying to get a volley going where, he'd have an idea, I'd take it and mess around with it. And then I said, well, what do you think of that? And then, all right, well, let me try this. It was probably the easiest record I ever made, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Really easy. Yeah.
That comes across.
Yeah. And nice to be able to like lay back and say, hey, do a solo or sing a lead vocal. You know what I mean? Like I kind of like that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I was wondering about that because like it is kind of like in a lot of the projects you done, Winery Dogs, which is amazing by the way. I was listening to
Winery Dogs.
it's so great. You know, I was listening to a bunch yesterday, and it's like the pressure, the heat is on you a lot. I mean, it's like obviously like it's a lot of to carry that in any trio, I guess, right? I mean, kind of
Right.
pressure on everybody. But yeah, I was wondering about that, like maybe with the co-lead singing and stuff, it could
Yeah, it was a nice, a nice change, and I mean, I'm very comfortable being the front guy, like you said, the Winery Dogs, or if I'm going out with my solo band, I've been doing that for a long time, being the singer, guitar player thing. So that's not a problem, but it was very nice actually in this instance to be able to kind of lay back in the cut, so to speak, just kind of take a back seat, from time to time, and then come into the fold when I'm needed. So,
yeah,
yeah.
It's super cool. I mean, I find your whole career arc actually super interesting. First of all, how prolific you are. Like it's unbelievable how much music you've created.
I think it's just because I started so young.
Yeah.
It's like I have this weird. It almost people seem to think like he must always be working, but it's not true. I have months and months to go by where I don't even look at a guitar. It's very interesting, and like I'll be outside, like planting trees or raking leaves up or something, and then suddenly I'll have an idea, and it's usually when I have an idea for a song that I'll pick the guitar up and start messing around with something. But or I'll be watching TV and I'll get it just to keep my fingers moving. But like right now, if I had to play a gig, it'd be like a fighter getting in the ring who hasn't boxed in a long time. I got to get back in shape. I kind of with this shutdown, I kind of embraced it. Like a lot of people were freaking out, and I was in my mind. I'm like, well, here's the break that I always wanted from touring. And now I'm kind of in this weird, like, well, I don't really feel like playing. I wrote 2 songs this year. You know what I mean? Like I'm real inactive, but I'm going to get back to it, of course.
I mean, I think it's okay though, eh? Like it's like obviously when it hits for you strong, and it's like just trusting that ebb and flow is kind of creativity and feeling like, I struggle with that a little bit, like feeling guilty about not playing enough or maybe I haven't, like, well, I should put out another record. I should. And then I just like, that's just like when it comes, and I trust in that.
Yeah. The guilt thing is, that happens. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a well-known artist, and we were talking on Zoom, and I said, I have this weird thing that when I get done writing something, I fall into this weird depression, and he's like, yeah, what do they call that? Postpartum depression or something? Is that what it's called?
Like when you give birth to something and then it's
right. Yeah. He's like, no, that shit's real, dude. And so it's like after I write something, a song, and it's done, it's a weird feeling that happens where I feel like just strange, depressed, and then I'll have another idea, and then I'll get back to it again. But the guilt thing is interesting because I have a hard time. So not now, but for years, a hard time just like embracing nothingness, like embracing the fact that you don't have to do anything. You already did, 10 records or 15 albums or whatever it is. It's okay to just take a year off,
Yeah. What was that Henley song? Learn to Be Still. I love that song, because of that whole.
Oh yeah.
It's how to stick with yourself.
He's one of my favorites. Actually, here's something that nobody knows. But when I came to LA, I got signed to Interscope Records. I was one of the first people they signed. Matter of fact, Mark Wahlberg was the first proper hit that they had. And I had a choice to go with Atlantic or Interscope, and my management put me over to Interscope. And I was nervous because everything was new. And but Mark had that hit, and then I was like, okay, this is going to be cool. But I was signed to Interscope, and Danny Kortchmar was going to produce my record. Who, if you know Don Henley, you know who Danny Kortchmar is, right?
Sure. Killer
And
guitar
for the
playing.
people watching, he wrote and produced End of the Innocence with Henley. And so I was had a meeting with Danny at his house in Santa Monica. We were picking songs. And then out of nowhere, the Interscope pulled the plug on me and said, well, we don't want you to be that kind of an artist. We signed you to be a hard rock guy. And it was just real frustrating. I wasn't writing hard rock songs. I was writing songs that, you know, that made sense for me to be working with a guy like Danny, you know. And
Sure.
and that was an interesting thing with my career. It was like I had this deal, but you know, the label didn't really know what to do with me because they thought I was this hard rock guy, but I really wasn't writing that kind of music, you know.
Yeah.
And I was almost like writing songs like if Daryl Hall could shred on the guitar, you know what I'm saying? I
Right.
was kind
Sure.
of doing stuff like that. So they ended up dropping me,
Okay.
and I lost my deal. But I'm going on a tangent here, but because you mentioned Don Henley, and I have such a thing for that record, you know, that End of the Innocence record.
Yeah.
But it just reminds me of that period in my life, and that's what I was going through. But anyway,
He's amazing. I mean, I got to tour with him from 2009 through 15. I was one of his guitar players.
wow, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was an amazing period and amazing. The first time I auditioned for him was in 2000, and I didn't get the gig then, but I kind of stayed in touch with the camp, and then I got it in 2009 when it came up again. And for me, that was like sewing up a big, like to be able to get it was like a real prestigious gig for me. So I was really stoked.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, I was and to stand there and listen to him from a fan perspective sing New York Minute or whatever, you know, was like, I remember specifically New York Minute because it's like I could stand on stage. I didn't have to play that much. I just played in the chorus.
Uh-huh.
I got to stand there and watch him sing every night like a fan and not playing the verse. And I'd just stand there and I'd almost be like, oh yeah, you got to come in a minute.
Oh
like,
man,
I get so mesmerized.
Crazy. What was he like? I mean, did you have a relationship with him, or was it just like you just come in, play, and don't say much? I mean, what was that like?
For the most part, I would say that that's actually true. That it wasn't like a super. It's not like, well, a couple times he would, you know, we would hang out, have dinners and things like that, and we get a little more social, you know.
Right.
But he's always was really nice to me. But you know, you want to come in and do your job and do it on a high level and don't expect a lot of praise or anything like that. It's an intense environment, but he just wants everything to be great is the thing.
Yeah.
You know, he wants it to be at a really high level all the time. And, as long as that's happening, he tends to loosen up and stuff and get into the moment. And, you know, before each gig, it would, you know, he just wants it to come off great. And
Right.
then when you get on stage and, you know, you're halfway through the first song, you walk up to the front of the stage and play your solo or whatever, and you look at him and then he feels like, okay, everything's going good. This is going to, you'd see him, just.
That's got to be nerve-wracking. I mean, you know, it's funny because, you know, we both play the guitar, but very different situations, because to me, like, there's no real pressure in what I do because I'm doing what I want, per se. Like, if I make a mistake, it's my problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. I'm gonna get mad at myself, but for me, like, if like Bob Dylan called and wanted me to be in this band, or Don Henley said, I mean, that would, like, you got to be able to maintain and deal with that kind of. Is there any stress? Like, that's what I'm trying to say. There's got to be stress there.
Oh yeah, as a sideman, there's lots of stress for sure, but that's what drives you to. I always say it's like this. It's like they want you on stage. You know how rock stars, and you've lived this life. I mean, being the front person, being the like I say rock stars, but I mean the front person, the person whose name is on the marquee, kind of gets to live in that persona. Like at that, like you know, there's a lot of pressure on. You know, when everybody's singing the words of your songs back to you and stuff too, I think that's a high level pressure that you feel in a different way. But I guess you're right. Like maybe if you make a mistake, it's on you or whatever. So nobody's going to yell at you. So there's not that.
Yeah.
But what the artists want you to do is be able to on stage kind of go toe to toe with them, step up to the front, then know when to step back when it's, you know, but they want you to be able to deliver that persona that they kind of get to live in 24/7. But then when you get off stage, you kind of have to go. I call it like, Superman Clark Kent, or like,
right.
like where you got to step back a little bit, and because you're really part of the crew as a sideman. You're part of a unit that's all working towards this performance that's with this person whose name is on the marquee. So that's the sideman thing, is being able to, deliver like a rock star or whatever, and then step back. And so, yeah, that's the job, I guess. And you're answering
to me, that would be a very stressful job. I'd be so worried I'm going to fuck something up,
Well, yeah, but if anybody was to hit you up and go, "Hey, do you want to come play guitar with me?" They would be, at this point in your life, it would be because you're you, and they would want your unique talent. And
right, so that wouldn't be, and that's, I guess that's how it's been for me. Like, I was, obviously in Poison, or Mr. Big, but I was in those bands as a band member, so I was like I was writing the songs with them, I was. So it still wasn't that same kind of pressure, like as if I was like, Beyonce's guitar player. It's a different kind of pressure at this thing. It's impressive that people can handle it, I guess.
Yeah, but you must have felt. Let's take Mr. Big, because of course it was big shoes to fill, and so coming in, what was that dynamic like?
Well, I was actually, at that point in my life, I was 29, and I was already in a band with Stanley Clarke. And we had a band called Vertu. It was me, Stanley Clarke, Lenny White, Rachel Z, and Karen Briggs. So it was like a Return to Forever, kind of a jazz fusion thing. And initially, I was in San Francisco making that record, and I went down to a club in San Rafael, I think, that Eric Martin was singing a cover gig.
Okay.
And I was dressed up like a homeless guy. I had fake teeth in, and I walked in.
You used to do this. Roger Carter told me about the teeth years ago.
I had 2 Pennsylvania State police officers show up at my uncle's house one time because he called 911 on me. I mean, I've created a lot of chaos with these teeth, but this time I was in Marin County, and I go see Eric, and I'm in the front, like, just, eye contact, and just staring him down with these horrible teeth, and big beard, and I just looked like a mess, and he came off the stage. Now, I've known Eric Martin since I was 19 years old, so we go way back. And so he comes off the stage, and he puts his arm around me, and he walks me outside, because I guess he wanted to get me the hell out of the club, because he didn't know if I was a nut or what the fuck I would do. So he's got his arm around me. He looks at me, hey man, are you okay, man? Are you okay? and I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I said, don't you fucking recognize me? and so I take the teeth out, and, oh, you son of a bitch. He said, he says, the weirdest thing, I thought I knew you. Yeah. But, and then so that's when he told me that, Paul didn't want to do it anymore. And did I want to come in and play? And I initially I said, I can't. I said, I'm already in a band. We were, we had a deal on Sony. Vertu was putting a record out, and the management was all pumped up. They thought that this was going to be like, that we were going to be playing arenas. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, this is jazz fusion, man. This ain't 1976, But so anyway, they, somehow I did both. I joined Mr. Big, and I joined, I was in the band with Stanley. But it's funny because, we're talking about, pressure and being nervous. I never had that kind of thing. I came from the Shrapnel Records thing. So what Paul was doing, although he's the best at it, the best I've ever heard as far as doing, what he does, I knew what he was doing. So I knew I could do it. I instinctively, I played differently, but I knew what he was doing, and I knew if I worked at it, I could do it well enough to do a gig, So I never felt that kind of crazy pressure. But I'll tell you a funny story. We did a warm-up show. I drink a lot back then, and and so anyway, I had shots of whiskey lined up on top of my Marshall on my amp, for the show. And like Pat Torpy was just such a, God damn it, Richie, he's just real straight kind of guy. And we did a cover of they did a cover of "Ooh, baby, baby, it's a wild world," Wild World, whatever it is. Yeah. And so the beginning, that's a la 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 la. I had to sing this fucking harmony, right?
Okay.
And so I'm back at my amp, and Pat's counting it off. So he's saying 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm in my mind like, first of all, give me the one or a hi hat. I know we're gonna say, and I'm back by the amp. So he's like 1, and I have a shot glass in my hand. And I know by the time he gets to 4, I'm going to be able to get to the front of the stage and I'm going to sing the harmony. I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional lush. So as I'm taking the shot, he starts freaking out while he's counting 1, 2, 3, 4. God damn it, Richie! And he's pointing, but he's trying to count, and he made me panic. And I took the shot real quick, and I got and I ran to the front of the stage. And I forgot what the fuck I was doing. I forgot the song. I didn't know. And thank God Eric had a guitar on. Eric started playing the chords. And I'm like, la, 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 la. I mean, it's total fucking disaster. But, but did I feel pressure? Obviously not. I don't. Maybe I should have. I probably should have paid attention a little more.
That was the best answer to that question that I could have hoped for. No, that's amazing. That's rock star stuff. That's great. I love that. That's rock and roll.
Oh my God, yeah. One time, can I tell you another funny story? You want to hear a funny story about these fucking teeth?
Yeah.
I used to live for 20 years. I owned a house up behind a baked potato. You were there at my house before? At that house? I knew you were here.
Yeah, I've been there, but not to your other place.
Okay, so I lived there for a long time. And, I used to do gigs down at the Baked Potato. I used to joke like I had the best dressing room because, my house is right up the hill, so it was really convenient. And then once I moved out here, I never played another gig there again, it's too far for me to go. Now I have to play at the Canning Club if I want to do that. But anyway, the point is one night I was bored and I was doing work on the house. I had made some steps outside. So I was pouring concrete that day. And I had these shoes they actually had dried concrete on them, like sneakers that were my work shoes. And I had these horrible pants that I would work in, and they had bits of concrete hanging off of them because, I was messy. And I had a T-shirt that I must have used to clean paintbrushes or something because it was all covered in like stain. I mean, and I'm wearing this, and I look in the mirror, and I hadn't washed my hair in a while. I lived alone. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time.
Right.
So I wasn't really showering regularly, it's just in that mode, smoking and drinking and, whatever. And so I thought to myself, I just realized that they're having a jam session down at the Baked Potato. So I'm looking at myself and it's like, man, you look fucked up. And so I put these teeth in. So I looked really, really fucked up. And somehow I was like, man, you still don't look quite, you smell bad. You look bad, but you can take it to another level. So I went in the fireplace and I put like a little bit of soot, like, on myself. And I had $5 on me. I just had a $5 bill. I don't even know if I had a cell phone back then. And so I leave the house and I walk down the street, and there's a real steep hill I got to go down. And so I go down the hill and I come to the Baked Potato, and I try to get in, and there's a band playing, and the guy's like, he goes, you can't come in. And I said, well, I got money. He goes, it's $10 cover. I said, I have $5. Now you got to realize this guy speaks differently than me. It's a real character with the teeth. I change. Everything changes when I put the fucking teeth in. And I do it for you, but they're upstairs. It's taking too long again.
That's another time.
Right. So I got $5. I'm going to buy a beer. And I look, and Slash is on the stage playing. And I go, holy fuck, is that Slash? And I literally go to run in the club. Now I know the guy's going to stop me, right? Okay. So I'm using his, what's going on here? My computer just did something weird. I'm depending on his momentum to stop me. Otherwise, I really am going to, my momentum is going to take me onto the fucking stage because the place is tiny. So he stops me and throws me back. He says, you can't come in here. He said, get the fuck out of here. And I have the $5, and I was like, fuck. So I leave, and I go all the way back up the fucking hill, steep hill, man. It's a fucking workout. I go all the way up the hill, walk back to my house, and I'm pissed because I wanted to go in there and create chaos with these teeth and this fucking character. And so I realized that I have a jar of coins. So I pull out $5 in quarters. And now I got the $5 bill and I got $5 in quarters. And I go back down the fucking hill. And I'm breathing heavy. I'm like, a wreck. So I get down the bottom of the hill. And now there's a different guy at the door. And he goes, it's $10. I said, no problem. I said, here's 5. And hold out your hand. He goes, what? I said, hold your hand out. He puts his hand out and I dump $5 in quarters in his hand. I said, there's your fucking cover. I'm coming in. I step in the fucking place, and the guy that threw me out the first time grabs me again and says, what the fuck are you doing? He said, get the fuck out of here. And now I'm on the street screaming at the big. I said, that's discrimination. I said, I paid the fucking cover charge. You have to let me in. So he's like, get the fuck out of here. He said, before I call the police. So I go around the back now I'm behind the baked potato. And I'm back there, and I got these fucking glasses and the teeth, and I'm smoking a cigarette, and I look, and Matt Log, the drummer, do you know him?
I know Matt well, yeah.
Right, so he sees me, and he goes, Richie. He goes, Richie, is that you? And I'm like, shh, don't tell anybody. I can see that you can't see me very well here. I said, don't tell anybody. I said, they threw me the fuck out. I said, I just wanted to come in. And he goes, you're coming in. He said, we're on a break. I'm putting you on the fucking stage. So I walk in. I think Johnny Grapark was playing bass. Teddy was playing the keyboards. And there was another guy playing the guitar. And they gave me a guitar. And they kicked into Red House. And I did a solo in character. And I swear to God, to this day, when that song ended, I had the biggest crowd response from that fucking solo, dressed like that guy, than anything I ever did. And I mean, I've played some big places, and the place went crazy when I did this fucking solo. And there was a guy there that dressed like he just stepped out of some store from West Hollywood, all decked out. He said, "My band is signed to a record label. Would you like to be in my band?" And so by the end of it, I reveal who I am. And the lady that worked there behind the bar said, oh, my God. She said, I said to Justin, I said, that guy can play the guitar. He reminds me of an ugly Richie Kotzen.
That's amazing. Okay, so there's how you do it, folks.
Yeah. You
got to get the jar and the $5 bill, and you need the teeth. Where are you going to find those teeth? Roger Carter told me, drummer friend, mutual friend, that you would do that in character for like flights. Like in the beginning of an like you would get on a plane and do it the whole way through security and the whole 9 yards.
I did it on a flight. One time I was flying back by myself. I was flying back to Philadelphia on a red eye to visit my parents. And I get on the fucking plane and I have the teeth in. And the lady, I'm in the exit row, and the lady's standing there with the, doing whatever the fuck she's doing. And I pull out the card because she's saying, going about the emergency, blah, blah, blah. So I have the card. Now I know she's watching me because I look like a lunatic. And I'm looking at the card and I'm pointing at these different things. And then I'm looking at the door and I'm touching the door and I'm like looking back and forth and I'm looking at her. And then part of the character, he goes, excuse me. He always says, excuse me, very politely with the teeth, but he looks terrible. Excuse me. And I said, I'm noticing, I'm on my phone. Fuck. I said, I'm noticing the picture doesn't match the door. Okay. I said, the diagram is different than the door. The handle's in a different place. And she's like, don't worry about it. And I'm like, yes, but I am worried because I need to know what you need me to do. I said, so when we're about to land, you want me to pull that lever on the door. Is that right? And she's like, no, don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just go to sleep. That's what she said. And I laid there with my mouth open with the teeth. I think I kept him for fucking 5 hours. I laid there with my mouth open with his fucking teeth, knowing that she's going to walk by and see me. I'm a sick motherfucker, I guess.
No, I love this. I love this like commitment to
committed, man. I'm committed, man.
Yeah, to the chaos. I mean, the fact that oh god, that baked potato story. I mean, that must have taken hours to build up to the solo.
The other time, I think it might have been the same flight. I pulled a cigarette out and I said, "Hey," I called the thing. I called her. I said, "Hey," I said, "I can't open the ashtray. It's welded shut." And she said, "Sir," she said, "you can't smoke on an airplane." I said, "Since when?" She goes, "Since 1996."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
See, that's why like Don Henley could never have me in his fucking band. I'd derail the whole operation. It'd be a fucking disaster.
Or it might be his greatest shows ever, you know.
Right.
If you just, let it happen. We got a whole bunch of folks in the super chat here that I missed, which is the things that come up in color at the top. So I'll answer a couple of these, or folks probably with questions for you. But Anthony says, thanks for always being so prolific with your music projects, always moving forward. Love 50. I mean, that whole project.
Yeah.
You were in a mode to get that done for sure, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you about it if you're curious.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a hell of a. I think I saw you at Gilby Clark's Christmas party right after you'd maybe gotten it done.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah.
And we spoke about it, but it was an amazing project.
Well, what happened was I was on tour, and I had a nice collection of songs completed that would have been a nice record, maybe 12 or 13. And then I realized, man, you got about 4 or 5 other songs that you had mastered years ago and never put out, right? So now that put me at about 20. And then I started thinking, I got a lot of songs that are not finished. And I had a horrible thought. I was on tour. I have a fatalist, I guess. I just think terrible things. I said, well, what if I fucking died on this tour, and then all these fucking songs are sitting on a hard drive, and someone gets a hold of them, and just thinking all kind of stupid shit, And basically that led me to you should finish that stuff when you get home, because I had all these songs that were in various degrees, and some of them were really good choruses that needed a verse, or a cool riff that I didn't know what to do with. And then so while I was on tour, I started thinking about, all right, that song, I need words for it. Started writing some words, and then when I got home, I started working on this shit. And then I realized, well, you're about to turn 50, 2020. What if you could get this shit done? So at that point, I'm just talking about doing 30 songs. I already had about 20, or somewhere around 20 that were done. Would have had a 14 or 15 song record. Those other 5 that I forgot about that had been mastered. So then I started thinking, well, you're home for the summer. Let's see if you can do it. And I didn't have to be out again until November. Then I was going to South America for a tour. So I thought, well, if I can get this shit handled before I go to South America, then I can announce that I'm going to do this 50 for 50 shit. Mm-hmm. And so as it turned out, I got it done. And then I started getting momentum. And then what happened, I started writing new songs while I'm working on this old stuff. I have an idea for a new song. One of them, I was sitting upstairs in the living room, and I had this whole melody, the whole fucking thing just came to me. And I came down here. My office is also my control room. That's where I'm sitting. I got all my outboard gear over here on the side. And underneath me is my drum room. So I put a click track up, hit record, and I ran downstairs because everything was mic'd. And I literally played the fucking song from behind the kit. And I'm a sloppy drummer, but I can play my shit, So I'm banging with it. Come up, I edited a few things, moved some shit so it stayed in time, whatever I had to do. And then I started overdubbing. But I recorded the song like that, just the band was up here somehow. And I just got behind the kit and just kind of recorded that,
Yeah.
And so
you heard the whole idea in your head.
Yeah.
You just executed it on the drums, and now you can play all
right. But the point I'm trying to make is that in the process of doing all these other things that were halfway finished or whatever, I started getting new ideas coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was kind of a fun thing to do, and I left everything on all the time, all the gear, everything was on all the time. And where I live, you've been here. I'm kind of isolated in a canyon, and its energy is fucking expensive. So when I was doing that, I had my electric bill 1 month during 50 for 50 was $1,300. I had a $1,300 electric bill, and I was averaging for those 3 or 4 months $1,000 a month, because when you leave the gear on, first of all, you got to leave everything on, because you don't want to come here and start shit up and then try to go record, because you get an idea, whatever, you get the idea, you got to have it on. But when you have the gear on, it becomes like a heat. It's a lot of heat from tubes and shit. So I had to run the air. So that was the most expensive part of the record. Actually, was my fucking utility bill. Yeah,
it's a huge factor, though. The streamline your from point A to point B, so nothing's in the way of you getting that song done when you hear it. And then it's because it's like you say, you might go months without, and then all of a sudden it's coming. And I mean, yeah, if you got an idea in your head. That's what I use the phone for so much now. I'm driving in the car, melody, whatever, a drum groove or riff or whatever, and I just instantly open it up and sing it into the phone so that I don't forget.
That's just a good point you're bringing up, because I had a problem years ago. I owned after I got out of Mr. Big, I was thinking about this and that, what I wanted to do, and I ended up I bought a building, a commercial building in North Hollywood. It's right by that. There's a club there called, I think, the Federal or something. It's in that NoHo Arts District, but it wasn't an art district when I bought this building. It was cheap, so I bought this building. I rehabbed it and I turned it into a recording studio. Okay. And I had like clients come in, like Gene Simmons would come in. The guy from Blink-182 ended up buying it from me, but I had different guy. Toto came through there. It was a cool place. But my point is, I would want to record something, and I would drive down from my house, which wasn't too far. But by the time I got from my house to the studio, opened the gate, turned the alarm off, turned the gear on, and got a guitar in my hand, I forgot what the fuck it was that I came down there to do.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it was weird. You'd think, oh, you got this too, but it didn't work for me. I need the studio to be where I live, because that's just how I work. I want to be able to get up. I got an idea. I can come in here and execute it,
And being aware of that and just being like, okay, this is what I need to do in order to get the work done, and then making it happen. Like your place is cool there. I mean, like you said, I've been out there, and it's like, you've obviously got the system that works for you, which is amazing, And
it wouldn't work for anybody else. That's why I don't encourage people to come here and record, because, it's like they ask me, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? I'm like, well, no, I can't, because it's going to disrupt this other thing that I have set up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, can you mic this? Can you mic that? My drums are mic'd in a way that probably no one would want to have their drums mic'd that way.
Right.
And I want to hear something funny about that, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we make the Adrian record, and I was recording something, and I had the drums mic'd a certain way, and I'm listening to. I'm like, Jesus Christ, the toms sound incredible. Like there's only two toms, How am I? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I have the overheads, 2 414s are up here, and I got a Sennheiser on one tom, and then I've got a fucking ribbon mic for the tom, floor tom, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm not using the tom mics. I'm thinking in my mind, I think I just have the overheads, kick and snare, 4 mics, and I'm like, I'm getting this incredible tom sound. Then I realize, you fucking idiot, you don't even, the fucking 414s aren't even being recorded. All you're recording are the 2 tom mics, kick and snare. Oh. But the cymbals still sounded good. So the drums on that I played on there are recorded in that kind of way where it's like a tom mic, another tom mic that's like this, that's going across, So very weird. So I kept my drums, when I got back here, I kept them like that. We did recording in Turks and Caicos, but I kept the drums recorded like that. It's a very weird way to record the drums, and I think the only reason it works is because my toms are very muted, if that makes sense.
The one mic like this is kind of the Glenn Johns thing.
Yeah,
right, where he would do the one overhead over kind of sort of over the rack tom and over the snare, and then the other one coming this way, equidistant from the snare. Right. And with a drummer that doesn't hit the cymbals too hard, it's fucking unbelievable sounding.
Well, see, that's another thing I learned about drumming. It's like, and I'm not all drummers, I guess, are aware of this, but you want a great drum sound. The drummer has to know how to hit the fucking cymbals, because they can get out of control. And then you spend your time like, all I hear is the fucking ride cymbal, and the snare sounds like horrible. Right. So, that's a big deal. It's like how the drummer deals with his instrument and how he plays the instrument is going to be a huge part of how that sounds. You know, and then if the guy doesn't play that way, then you're in a position where you have to use samples because it's the only way to get the snare and the kick in the snare to be heard.
Exactly.
Felt. You know, otherwise it's just a cymbal nightmare.
Yeah. That's the biggest factor is if you can get somebody that doesn't hit, or, you know, you do the Queens of the Stone Age, or when they started, you know, recording the kit and then doing the cymbals after, and then you can compress the hell out of the drums because there's no cymbals.
Is that what they did?
Yeah, they would do things with, like, I think the album with Dave, like is that Songs for the Deaf, where I think it's largely like they'll do the drums and then overdub cymbals, and then you've got just the kit, and then you know, with the overdub cymbals and separate.
So when he's playing the drums, then I mean, I would imagine he's gonna have to, like, he's got to be moving his hand, but it's an imaginary ride or an imaginary hi-hat.
Probably something they got to practice doing.
I'd like to see how they do that, and that's to make that feel the way that feels. I mean, that takes some talent to pull that off. You know what I mean?
But then you can get that explosive, you know, because you can compress the hell out of everything, and the drums sound huge, but the cymbals are controlled.
I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try doing that.
Might be an interesting, you know, experiment. I've got, let me see, a couple other, all kinds of folks here asking questions. A fellow named Bent Tom says, growing up in York, Pennsylvania, I met Richie in the 90s at Trader Jim's Music, owned by Jim Inners. And he said that you spent 15 minutes chatting with him and his buddy Joe. And he says you're a real kind soul.
Oh, that's sweet. I thought he was going to say I was a real asshole.
Pennsylvania, man, it's like, it's not unlike, in many ways, unlike where I grew up in Canada. It's like, you know, just kind of good-hearted people, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's different. It's beautiful there. It's really pretty, Pennsylvania. I used to have this weird romance about moving back, and I always wanted to get one of those big houses down. They call it the Main Line. It's right outside of Philly, like Villanova, in that area, or Lower Marion, or whatever the fuck it is, Bryn Mawr. And then, you know, I don't know. Then I started thinking, well, wait a minute. You know, you moved out to California when you were 20. Like, I'd be back there all alone. Like, there's nothing, you know, other than I have like one friend, my friend Doug, and then other than that, it's my mom and dad, and, you know, a cousin that I talk to. So it's like, it would be kind of lonely. You know, I mean, my whole life is in California, so I don't think about going back there. But when I do go back, you know, it's a beautiful place for sure.
Yeah, I feel the same way about going home. There's a real romance with it. Like, I get back there and then I'm like, I don't want to be a downer, but my folks have passed away. And I had a moment where I was standing, is the old district where I used to ride on Saturdays on my bicycle to go down to the music shops that were all on this one street, kind of an old town part of Edmonton called Old Strathcona. And I'd drive down there and go to the music shops because that's where all the guitar stores were. And it was real, you know, cool memory for me now, you know, to think about that place. But I would ride there on my bike on Saturdays and stuff. So anyways, a little while ago, I was down there and I was standing there on the corner looking around, you know, feeling nostalgic or whatever. And I had this wave come over me, like, I just want to go home, which meant home where I grew up, you know. But that's not there anymore, you know. And so it's that feeling hardcore for me. And I did, you know, so I'm real aware of that. That town's sort of full of, I've still got family there, but it's still sort of full of ghosts for me. So like, I moved to LA and this is where my life is now. I was talking to somebody the other day that said that they're thinking about going to Nashville, and a lot of folks have left LA, and as it gets more expensive and all that, and they seem to go to Nashville, but I don't know if I would, like, at this point, I think I'm in LA, you know. I mean,
I am a California guy 100%, and I get myself real cranked up around this time of year because it's, you know, it's tax time.
Right,
you know what I mean? I start getting pissed off, and I start thinking, like, well, you know, if I moved in Tennessee, you know, they have no state income tax, or if I moved to Nevada.
Right.
But I guess they're going to have to find a way to get the Pacific Ocean over there for me to fucking go. Because, you know, I'm always down the beach, and I just love it here. And everything that happened for me that was good as it related to my career is because of California. You know, I went to San Francisco when I was a teenager. I was going back and forth because that's where my deal was. And I really wanted to live in Sausalito. Was my evil plan was to move to San Francisco. Beautiful. And I have so many friends there, and that's where I wanted to go. and it was just so hard to get to move here. And what happened was I got something. I told you earlier. I got signed to Interscope. That's how I moved to LA, because they said you got to be in LA. And then I moved here and I made my life here. So I mean, there's no. Every now and then I get crazy and I really scare my wife, because she moved from Brazil, and she's like, "There's no fucking way you're moving me from Sao Paulo to LA, and now I'm acclimated to LA, and now you want to take me to fucking Nashville? There's no way." You know what I mean? So, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go either." But it's just that once a year, when I got to do my taxes, I said, "You cocksucker, where's this fucking money going?" You know what I mean? But hey, it's fucking worth it in the end to be here. It really. And the other thing is, California is like a paradise, but you got to pay a fucking price. Because I was in the biggest earthquake they ever had in 1994. And I was renting a house back then. The fucking chimney snapped off. It felt like a giant was going like this. And then I had a brand new car that I just bought. And this is horrible. I had bought a Jaguar XJS black convertible, gorgeous fucking car, parked in the garage. Earthquake happens. I come out, and I was married at the time. We come out, get in the car because we wanted to listen to the radio. All right. So I get in the car, I pull it out of the garage, and it's dark, and we're listening to AM radio, and we both fell asleep in the car. And I woke up, and there was white fucking paint inside the entire interior of the car. Here, a paintbrush fell out, bounced off the hood, which was dented, and fell right in front of us. Walk in the garage, and walked through paint and white paint all over the inside of the black interior.
Oh no!
And then so that's that. So the earthquake is the point. And then 2 years ago, I bought this fucking place, and the only thing I worried about was fire. I kept talking about fire. I'm nervous about the fire. Don't you know the biggest fire in Southern California history comes through my canyon? It came down Canaan Road and just ripped through here. Yeah. And they said, I mean, not to reveal where I live, but I don't really give a fuck. One of my neighbors is The Bachelor, where they filmed the Bachelor, and I'm on the news. I'm watching the news, and we're down in Santa Monica at my buddy's house, and they said Bachelor Mansion's on fire. And I said to Julia, I said, we're fucking done for. I said, there's no fucking way the house is there. There's no fucking way. And then they started doing this thing where they'd show an aerial and they'd pull the streets up. And I'm watching the news, and they pull up our street and the street that connects to it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's like, it's all red and black.
Oh my God. And
so at the end of the day, 2 days go by, we don't know nothing. And one of the neighbors stayed in the canyon, and they came up here and they surveyed the house, and they texted and said, your house is still standing. That's what they said. Still standing.
Right.
We drove out here, and they had the rose block. We found a way into the canyon, came in the back. Julia and I came up, and there were fires burning all over the fucking yard. And,
oh my God.
And we're standing there. She was down there with a hose. I'm over here with a fucking hose. And what had happened at the Bachelor Mansion, one of the structures burned, but not the house. And I mean, cross myself, knock on wood, whatever the fuck I got to do. I don't know how we survived that thing, but we did. So my point to all this about California is it's paradise, but there's a fucking cost that you have to pay to live here. And it's not just the fucking taxes, there's some other shit going on here, but we survived it. So, I'm staying. I'm not leaving.
I was worried about you because I remember talking with you about your house and where it was at Rami's party, Foo Fighters party. And and I remember talking, you're like, man, I love it out there. It's great. And literally it was 2 weeks later. Oh. And I thought, shit. And I didn't want to bother you because I thought the worst, but I remember texting you, like, no, it's cool. Like, we're okay. We just got back up here and everything's okay. And so I was stoked to hear that. Cause I mean, man, like it's a scary thing. I mean, I looked at a house a little while ago out around the, Pasadena, Sierra Madre area, and it was beautiful. Just gorgeous. And then I thought, there's a big mountain right beside it. And I thought, I can just see the fire coming over that mountain. That's what going through my head, like where it's like, this isn't like, and there's one road out. And I thought, I don't know, I can't do it. So I literally was a factor in where I bought, because I thought I just freaks us out. But that's what you're right. There's a cost beside the tax.
I got to do a shout out here. While we were talking, And I said about Pennsylvania, my friend Leroy, he goes, I'm in PA, brother. You got me. So I got a couple of people in PA, so I got to be careful.
Me too.
I get myself in trouble.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Folks in Edmonton. I got folks back there.
So. Yeah, you got people back there in your hometown. But, you said about that mountain. Well, I remember, too, when I was in the office here, and I had the window open, and I was working on the computer, and the smoke, it was all smoky, and it was getting, I knew the fire was around me, but it didn't come into the canyon yet. So I was here. Julia was somewhere else on a gig or something, and she was going to spend the night at her friend's house. And I had the window open, and I remember I was getting pissed off because the smoke, it was, smoky. And so I turned the sprinklers on.
Okay.
Because I knew the mist would pull some of the smoke out of the air and stop it from coming in, right?
Okay.
And I'm down here with the bottle of tequila and a beer and doing whatever the hell I'm doing. And I ended up closing the window, going to bed, but I forgot to turn the sprinklers off. And so they stayed on for a long time. And then I got woken up, phone was ringing, and it was Julia and then my friend Brett. And they said, hey, you better get the fuck out of there. The fire just jumped the freeway because it was over in Oak Park. They said, it's coming into the canyon. So I'm like, you're full of shit. So I get up, I walk out of the bedroom, and I look at the mountain, and the fucking thing is glowing orange. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy. So I got, I made sure all the windows were closed, and I realized the sprinklers were on, turned those off. And I came, I got the dog, I put the dog in my truck, and I didn't take anything really except for a couple hard drives. Julia wanted her bass. She had a 5-string Music Man. So I got the bass, I got the dog, and a little bag with hard drives because I figured, we'll be back tomorrow. It's a blow. And then it was a month. We couldn't live here for a fucking month. No electricity, nothing.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, man, I'm so happy. Yeah, it's crazy. Todd Roy is the fella that for like 2 years has been asking me to have you do this. So, and he's in the super chat. He says, a small donation for putting up with my harassment and getting Richie on the show. Thank Richie for coming on. And so, great that you're here, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well,
fun.
OGK says, can you talk a little about your history with, okay, this is interesting. We'll take it around to the, it's a little gear-oriented question here. I always think about you as somebody that I could hand you probably a Telecaster with a decent guitar tone, and that's all you would need. It wouldn't matter. Like, I know you've probably got your favorite stuff and everything. We can talk a little bit about it, but it's like, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
It's, you're like living, breathing tone is in the hands argument, I think. But anyway, he'd like to know about your Marshall JMP amps and how your needs changed, and you've now using Cornford Victory amps. Right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about all that?
Well, those Marshalls, like the 4-input, what they call them, plexis or what have you. I like those amps because they're very percussive. And so, I obviously don't use a pick too often these days. So I need something that's, has that kind of attack, to kind of compensate. So that's what I like. I was playing the Fender Vibra King for a while, which also has that kind of an attack that I like. I like the way it breaks up.
Those are cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately for me, they were not reliable. I don't know why. I went through a bunch of them when they would die on me. So maybe I was doing something wrong. But they're great amps. They sound amazing.
Another user that uses those is, and it's interesting, is Pete Townsend. That's kind of been his amp of choice, which makes a lot of sense. The percussive thing that you
absolutely you get that sound. That's right. So he and I, we had the same kind of a rig because I had the 212 cabinet, and then the amp is 3 10s, not 4 10s. It's 3 because I think they needed to make room for the big transformer that's in there. I think that's why that speaker is missing. So anyway, the Marshall has that percussive thing. Now, what I've learned is I have 2 amps with Victory, and one of them is a 50-watt amp that's really a high gain thing. I got it sitting there, and that is has a tone knob, a master, and a gain. And that's one of those kind of amps that you don't need an overdrive. It'll just scream, you know. But what I learned is that those kinds of amps that have that gain, they lack the percussiveness that we talk about. Because what happens is that it squishes the signal, okay? So you can get that screaming thing, but then when you want that big, you know, power, I can never get it out of those amps. So now what I did is Victory made me a 100-watt amp that is more in line with those Marshalls that we're talking about, or the Vibra King. But you can also, it has a feature where you can pull back the master volume and it'll saturate it in a way if you want to get that other sound. But what I do is I keep that master all the way up, and then I just, you know, treat it as if it was one of those Marshall, you know, 4-input heads, and I get the singing overdrive out of my overdrive pedal, you know, which is in the Fly rig that I got one over there, you know. So
yeah,
you know what it looks like, right? I don't have to get it. You know what it looks like, yeah. Tech 21, right?
Yeah, I did a video for that, like a demo for that, and that was my favorite one of that whole series. Was your pedal?
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you the whole story about that. Is that that whole idea? I showed the guy that makes that shit. He was at my house, and I had taken my favorite overdrive and his delay that he made, and I was playing a Fender Twins back then, or Vibra Kings, depending on where I was. And so I had the Fender foot switch, the overdrive, and the delay built in. I wired it myself into this very crude electrical box, like a long, it was meant for, like, you know, some kind of electrical components, drilled it out. And it was like designed so that when I did these dates that I had to fly down to Brazil, or, you know, fly into Japan and come home, that I had my rig, I could put it in a backpack, literally, you know. So I had my overdrive, my delay, and then the foot switch to control the amp. Just plug it in, boom. And I showed it to him, and he said, well, we can make this for you. And the reason why you like the red one is because of the overdrive, because we spent 6 months getting that overdrive right. Because the first one they did, whatever they did with the overdrive, it might have been good, but it wasn't to my liking.
Okay.
And so we spent back and forth until finally we got the overdrive right. So that's what really separates that pedal from the other ones, is the overdrive circuit.
And so when you're using it, you set the amp kind of slightly crunchy. I mean, it's loud and crunchy, and then that just is on top, right?
Well, it depends on where I'm playing in the room I'm in. So if I'm in a really big room, then I can use the amp, you know, to be crunchy. But if I'm in a smaller room, what I'll do is the amp is actually clean, and this pedal comes with a Sans amp, okay? And I take that Sans amp and I can revoice the gain stage, right? So I can get it that it sounds like it's a cranked amp breaking up. And then when I want the full-on distortion, I hit the, you know, the distortion overdrive. But the amp is actually relatively clean. Okay. And I'm using the amp as almost like as a power stage, as a power amp.
I see.
But then in a bigger room, you know, scrap that. You can crank the amp and get the proper, you know, thing.
So then you'll dial the pedal slightly different for that.
So then I don't, if in that scenario, I don't even touch the Sans amp. That's off. I don't even turn it on. Okay. And then the pedal just, basically how I'll run it is the pedal will be like an overdrive. I'll use that for rhythm. I'll roll the volume down. And then for lead, I'll turn it all the way up. So I can leave that pedal on, you know, for most of the time, the distortion part of it. Sans amp part of it I won't use. But, you know, it leads me to tell you something else. Years ago, I had a signature model amp with Cornford, and you can't get this amp anymore. They don't make it. But that amp, I don't know how we did it, but we designed, and it's the same guy that built that amp that builds the Victory amps. But that amp, for years, I plugged straight into it, never with a pedal. I never had a pedal. And I got the most screaming lead. I'd turn it back, it would clean up. And for years, I'd go do these tours. As long as I had that amp, I didn't have an overdrive or nothing, just straight into it.
Wow. Well, it's interesting. Do you record with the signature heads now a lot? Or I know you got some vintage Marshalls there as well and stuff. What's kind of your preference, or you just mix it up?
Yeah, I like the path of least resistance. I have that Victory amp sitting down here, wired in, and that's the amp I plug into. And then I use the fly rig. I did a couple things direct with the fly rig, but honestly, I can always hear the direct sound. There's something about it that it bothers me. And I can't even put it into words, but it feels strange. It sounds strange. And even on the last record I did, there's a couple things that I did direct, and I can hear it, and I regret that I did it. It's really hard to get a direct sound that sounds like an amp. You can get something that sounds good. Where it works is like guys when they get that tone, and it's mostly in hard rock and metal, when they'll get a tone where the volume's all the way up in the guitar, and it's a distorted sound, heavy, big. You can get a great direct sound like that. That it'll work because they're layering it, and you don't really know what the fuck you're hearing by the time it's mixed. It just sounds like a wall of sound.
Right.
You can do it. But if you're doing anything that has any kind of nuance to it, where you want to roll the volume or do anything, forget about it. You can't do it. And it's like wine. Like if you put wine and you stir the glass and you see the legs of the wine,
Right.
A tube amp has that. And you'll really notice it if you plug into a Marshall 1974X, that combo. I have one sitting right in the other room. And you hit a chord on that. You hit a chord with kind of a clean, a little breakup tone. Hit it and don't do anything. Let it ring and listen to what the fuck happens. And you're going to hear all this kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like, and it is that. It's like the wine glass. There's no fucking way you're going to get that if you plug in direct through anything. I don't care what it is.
That's
pedal,
a brilliant analogy.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And most people don't fucking know the difference, so it doesn't matter. But for me, I hear it, and I regret some of those things that I recorded direct because I can hear that it's direct. Why the fuck did I do that? Lazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes convenience or the situation dictates you're trying to do something in a hotel room, or you can't crank it up at home. And we're trying to get to that, I think, so that it's easier to record. But something struck me the other day in here, because I've got cab isolated in the other room and mics and all that stuff. And I've also got load boxes and all that stuff here. And I got high gain amps and I got lower gain amps. But the sound when you hear, I've got a 71 Marshall 50 sitting just over here. And the sound that you get when you crank that amp up anywhere like up to 8 or whatever, and when you can't hear the cab because it's isolated in the other room and you don't have the speakers on in here, so you can just hear the transformer and the amp doing its thing and all that. And the whole amp, when you hit a chord and there's nothing on and you just listen to the amp, goes it does this thing, and it's like it's this evolving sound of this voltage sagging and the whole thing. And when you hit it, and that's always my argument with why guitar tones got homogenized with preamp gain and stuff, because they don't do that anymore. It's that whole sagging voltage thing. The chord evolves. It's why that G chord at the beginning of Mean Street, but Van Halen goes, and it's all that shit you were just talking about with the wine glass and coming through.
Right.
It's in the music. And whereas a preamp gain or just high gain, and certainly with going direct and you're taking speakers out of the equation and stuff, all that magic of all that stuff kind of evolving when you let something ring goes away.
And there's nothing wrong. I don't want to send the wrong message, because I go direct a lot because I want it to sound that way. Like I have things where I plug right into a preamp and it's a direct compressed sound, but that's for a specific part. I'm talking about the amp as it relates to like a certain kind of playing. I go direct all the time and don't regret it. Because for an overdub or just embellishment, that's all fine and good. But certain things, you want a certain thing, you need an amp. You got to have a fucking amp with a speaker and a microphone inside of a room. It's like that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, and you play with your fingers, which a lot, which is a whole nother level of dynamic. Somebody even with a pick, even if they're good with a pick, it doesn't have the same level of, when we think about folks that play with their fingers, like, yourself and Jeff Beck, and that level of dynamic expression you can get. It becomes addictive, I think, and then when you don't have that complexity or texture to the tone, it's not the same. But I know exactly what you mean. If you're just doing an arpeggio overdub or some kind of like, little part or something. It's cool. It doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. Arthur has a question. He just wanted to say hello. Actually, he says he met you through Stevie Salas. I remember Stevie, of course.
Yeah.
Years ago. Enjoyed your playing and he's enjoyed ripping off your killer licks as well. He says.
Cool.
Let's see here. Let's see. Somebody's got a question. Loot89 says, do you know if the vinyls, sorry, my eyes are so bad, for the SK album are delayed? That's your new album. Yeah.
I got some here. They weren't delayed for me.
Okay.
No, I have no idea. I wouldn't know why they would be delayed. I don't know. Is he having a hard time ordering it?
He says he's expected deliveries now 4/8 to 5/14. Yeah, I don't know. It's a technical question we probably don't have the answer to. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, and Music Therapy Laz was in the chat there, and he also said best story I've heard in a while, and I think that's relating to the teeth incidents. Neil Conway says, here's something for the next cover charge. Thanks, man. He's enjoying the show. And yeah, this is this is one of my favorites, that's for sure. We got 1,172 people online, which is awesome.
Oh, that's cool. I wanted to update. I don't know what the hell happened to my Facebook. Now I got it on my personal site. I tried to update it on my fan site, and it said I can't do it. And apparently there's a lunatic running around claiming to be me, asking for like donations and shit. So if anybody asks you for money, or if anyone sends you a message, it ain't me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many creeps out there. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Why bother impersonating me of all people?
Come on now.
Impersonate somebody. Like impersonate like Brad Pitt or somebody, somebody interesting.
I think it would be interesting if they impersonated your character with the teeth, though.
Well, now that would be pretty slick. Yeah.
That would be worth it for sure. No. Michael Torin says, "Did you ever go through that's interesting, through a rack phase of gear? Did that ever happen to you in the 80s?"
When I was a child, when I was a teenager, I had a rack. I had one of those Ibanez multi-effect things. I had a delay with an effects loop. I did go through the rack. I think I even had a Mesa Boogie that was a rack mount head. It did go through that. Absolutely. Yeah.
It was a thing. I remember when I moved to LA, I had a Boogie Studio preamp and a 295 power amp and a 12-space rack and two other 212 cabinets and all this crap. And I lived in an apartment,
Oh, yeah.
I had like no gig, and I had all this stuff.
I go through. I'm like, stuff stresses me out. And when this fire ripped through, I went and did an inventory. And in this house, I've got 47 either heads, cabinets, combos, bass amps, but there's 47 amplifier things and 87 stringed instruments. Wow. And, I'd like to liquidate a lot of this shit, but the problem is, you start selling stuff and then people start thinking maybe, you got a fucking drug addiction you're trying to pay for or something, and then, or you're going under. And then the other thing, it's like, if I sell one of those fucking Marshalls, that'll be the day that I go, oh, I want to plug that in and record a part with it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So it's like, I'm stuck. I got to keep all this shit. So now what I did in various parts of the house, I just have amps. Like there's a lot of corridors that go up the back of the house. So as you go up, there's like, there's a Marshall mini stack there. There's a Cornford mini stack over here. You know what I mean? There's a Fender there in the hallways.
Dude, you're living that's the dream.
Yeah.
Right? If you would have thought, okay, when you're 15 years old, that someday I'll live in a house in California, I'll be close to the beach, and I'll have Marshalls everywhere.
Yeah.
It's the dream. It's the dream.
Yeah.
Trevor says, he was in the top chat there. He says, your Fender Tele looks incredible. I agree. It's such a cool guitar. Made in Japan. You've had a couple, right? Like a Strat and a Tele, right? Signature guitars.
Yeah, there's a Strat. A Strat's within reach. That I can get to you. There's a red one.
Oh, cool.
And there's a white one. It's funny. There's a girl now that has a signature model Strat, and it looks almost identical to mine. I mean, it's crazy. The same pick guard. The only thing she did was she has the headstock is red. It looks pretty good. I'd like to get my hands on one of those. But mine is red as well. You can see the wood grain.
Yeah.
and then there's one in white, and then the Telecaster, which is too far for me to reach. And I go back and forth between the Strat and the Tele, and that's my thing. But you know, the Strat's been in production since 1996.
Wow.
And a white one, and then the Telecaster, but the Telecaster originally was seafoam green, and then we made it replicate the guitar that was the first Telecaster they gave me, which was a Sunburst. And that's how it was.
Yeah, and you're a single coil fan, I think, for probably all the same reasons, like the slightly lower gain, more getting the tone out of the. I'm guessing, right? Like
yeah, it just works for me. I like the sound of it. It's transparent. I just like the sound. Although in the Telecaster, that's a humbucking pickup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
The Strat is single coil, but the
it's a Rails one, right? Isn't it? No,
yeah.
Rails. Yeah. Cool. Let's see here. Oh, that was the rack phase question. We already got to that one. It's just tough when the questions come through fast. I sometimes take pictures of them on my phone, and then I look at the pictures because otherwise I miss them.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, this is a great idea, actually. Natasha in the super chat, she said, we want Ugly Kotzen to be a real act with his own social media presence.
Yeah, I know. I'd probably get in trouble. He'd get in a lot of trouble. It'd be a bad scene.
Will the Blue Strat ever be in production? That's a question from someone else.
Well, that's a great question, because we had, before the pandemic, the guys came over here from Fender. We had all the guitars out, and the plan was to do like you know, a run of Strats in different colors, and they were gonna, because right now the Telecaster is available globally. You can get it no matter where you are. The Strat technically is only really sold in Japan. The Stratocaster. Okay, so the meeting we had was to bring it up to speed so that it'd be easier to get for folks around the world, and and so in that meeting we talked about colors, you know, offering a blue one. There's only 2 blue ones. One of them I have here, and then the other one I think a friend of mine's got it in Florida. So there were only 2 blue ones ever out. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great if they're easier to get everywhere. Tell Fender that you've got like 1,183 people here that all want to see your guitar.
Exactly.
Let's see. We got a couple other folks here in the what we got here. Vincent says, thanks, Pete, for this. You bet, man. Thanks for always being here, Vincent. You're here every week. Greetings from Jersey. He's asking you, can you talk about your vocals and how you developed your vocal style? I'm interested in that as well. Like, I remember your first albums coming out. The big difference between your first record and your second record, where like also some sort of more bluesy, soulful like influence coming in already, and then the Motherhead album came out.
Yeah,
Family Reunion, and it was like, whoa, you can sing like crazy. Like,
yeah, well, I'll tell you what happened. It was very interesting. I sang, you know, since I was 12. I had a band, and they let me sing 2 songs. They used to call me Mush Mouth because I had a lisp, and you know, I just had braces and shit. Teeth were fucked up, but which is ironic because now my character has fucked up teeth. So anyway, but when I made that first record really quick, I realized that I didn't have a passion for instrumental guitar music. You know, even though that's what got me out of Birdsboro, Pennsylvania, I realized that I want to play like, you know, rock and roll with a singer, you know. And so I started writing the songs, and Mike Varney said, you know, I don't know if you can sing or not, but you got to be the singer. You got to do it. I'm like, really? Because yeah, just figure it out. And so I was real into like early Rod Stewart, Paul Rogers. So I would record myself, and I'd try to emulate Rod, and that's probably where the rasp thing came, why I have a raspy sound in my voice. And then with Paul, you know, and then it went to Sam Moore, you know, Sam and Dave, and he had that sound that placement, you know. And that's kind of where I got that. And then I heard Terrence Trent D'Arby, and that's when I got real inspired. And I used to try to emulate, you know, some of the stuff that he would do. So I would say him, Rod, Sam and Dave, Paul Rogers, even Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale. I had those records, Stormbringer, and they were big influences on me. But what happened was I did that first record, and I was really, I think in my mind I had Coverdale in my head, like that's who I wanted to be back then. You know what I mean? And I did that record, and after that, very quickly, my singing opened up. I just figured something out, because when I was making that record, I didn't quite have it together. My placement was a little funny. If you hear me, I pronounced some words a little funny. I was still trying to find myself a little bit. And then right after that, I did it. And we had Interscope wanted to put one of those songs in a movie. They put it in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And I said, before you put it in, please let me re-sing it. Because the Fever Dream record had only been out probably not even a year. Yeah, no way it was out a year. It was young. And I said, please let me redo it. And let me redo the bass guitar. And so I went into San Francisco. I was in San Francisco. I went up to Coast Recorders. And I went in there with my buddy Steve Fontano. And we replaced the vocal. I replaced the bass guitar. And we put it in. So here's an interesting thing for the guys that are curious. Listen to the song Dream of a New Day from Fever Dream, and then go listen to the same song on the Bill and Ted Bogus Journey soundtrack. And you will then hear like that, how I just within months flipped it and found my voice. And that was before I joined Poison. That was before Motherhead. That had to be 90 or 91, somewhere around that time. And I just figured it out. Like, that's Richie Kotzen. That's how that's your voice right there.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And I must have been 20 years old, probably about 20 years, 19, 20, somewhere around that age.
Yeah. And then I find it interesting how, I mean, it was like super soulful, some of those records, and funky and stuff. And then getting into the like mid 2000s, you did some music there that was like almost like just like harder, straight up rock edge kind of thing. And is that something that you enjoy doing, kind of flipping between the?
I guess, I had flexibility. I had freedom. Like the Motherhead record was a real strong thing for me at that point in my life. I think that was a real important record. And I was real confident then. I really knew who I was as an artist. And I got really fucked up by the label. It was a terrible thing that happened. I had signed to Warner Brothers Publishing. I'd signed to Geffen, and, it was coming out of Poison. I mean, it was a real big deal. The deal itself was big with both Warners and Geffen. And I never forget, I was in Rick Shoemaker's office, and he's listening to the record, and there's a song on there called A Woman and a Man. And he stopped it, and he said to my manager, because that's a #1 fucking record. That song is a #1 record. And he looked at Larry, my manager, and said, I hope Geffen doesn't fuck this up. Is exactly what he said. And sure enough, Geffen fucked it up. And they put the record out. John Kolodner was my A&R guy, and Aerosmith went on to Sony, and they took him along. They needed Kolodner, and they took him out of Geffen, or however it happened. He left. They took him, however the fuck you want to say that happened. Anyway, I never forget. I was sitting, and Bryn Breidenthal was going to be my publicist, and she was all excited to work the record. And then she left, and then I was stuck with this woman. I'll never forget, I was in her office. I was all decked out. I loved Sly and the Family Stone back then, so we were all dressed like Sly and the Family Stone. That was our thing, the hats and the bell bottoms, the platform. And I'm sitting there, cocky 24-year-old kid in her office. And her band, I think, was Counting Crows. And so she took my tape, and she looked at me, and she goes, I don't get it. And she threw the tape across her desk, and it landed right in front of me. And then at that point, I know, you're fucked, Rich. You're fucked. And I said, okay. I said, well, I guess I'm going to go. And I left, and that was the end of it. They fucking dropped me. They made 15,000 albums, and they printed them, and they said, you're done. But Japan promoted it. MCA got it in Japan, and they promoted the fuck out of it. And then that's when my career opened up. So then for years, I had to go to Japan. They gave me money to make records, and then, then that dried up and whatever. But
that's
another, I got another story just tied into that. I don't want to bore you here, but this is kind of inspiring for kids trying to make something happen. Before I signed to Geffen, I was out of Poison and I was back in San Francisco. And Atma and Noor and I went into, again, we went into Coast Recorders. That's where I was doing my damage back then. And we recorded 6 songs that ended up being half the Motherhead Family Reunion record. And so Varney said, well, you know, go meet with Herbie Herbert. Now, Herbie was the manager of Journey, Mr. Big. He had a lot of big bands. And we go and we're in San Francisco, and Atma and I are sitting there all dressed, you know, the way we used to like to dress. And we're sitting there, and he had the tape. Now, this is before I got signed together. He had the tape because, you know, he said, I don't get it. He throws the tape across the desk. He goes, guys like you, now mind you, I'm fucking 24 years old, right? He's saying guys like me, guys like you are working in gas stations around here now. You know, you better look for another fucking job. And I'm like, wow. So we left the meeting. I go back to LA. I get on the phone with this lawyer from New York, from Boston, and he gets in. Larry Mazur wants to talk to you. Larry's another big time manager in New Jersey, Philadelphia area. And so, long story short, a week after I had that meeting with Herbie, and he told me I'm going to be in a gas station, I was in John Kolodner's office with Geffen. He said, I'm going to talk to David over the weekend. We're going to do this deal. You're a box set artist. You're going to be, you know, box sets. That's what he said. This is a 20-year deal we're doing with you. And he said, I'll talk to David over the weekend. We'll have the contract on Monday. And then, you know, from there, I got the deal with them. I got the deal with Warner's. And then it went fucking downhill. I mean, it's my career has been like a fucking roller coaster, you know. Yeah. And I get these guys that come up to me, it's like, well, you know, Richie, you should have been a big star. It's like, well, you know, you can't. There's certain things you just can't fucking control, you know.
Yeah.
You write the greatest song ever written, and it doesn't fucking matter if you're not at the right place at the right time. It's not going to fucking work.
So how do you feel about it now? Because all this, I mean, I've heard so many stories, and I got some of my own, you know, over the years. It's very similar, you know, experiences.
Right.
And it's amazing the A&R office story. I'll just say really quick, and then I'll ask you my question. But it's like, I got a buddy that was signed to A&M, and he's a brilliant songwriter, brilliant musician. He played everything, and he sounded like Paul McCartney when he sang. He was unbelievable. And he had the same experience. He's on A&M, and they you know, can the A&R person leaves, whatever happens. And he goes walking into A&M for his meeting with the new person. And he comes walking, he's got a t-shirt on and like jeans or whatever, you know, and he comes walking in and the guy goes like, don't come walking in here looking like that. What the fuck is your problem? And he throws like $500 across, like in cash, across the desk. And he goes, get yourself a leather jacket or something when you come in here. Like, I'm screwed. This guy does not, you know, and he called at that moment, he knew the guy wasn't going to understand what he was doing. They hooked him up with another artist because they didn't drop him. They held him, and he had to put something out. It was one of those deals. And he called the band. It was a duo. He wanted to hook him up with this other singer-songwriter the guy didn't get along with and stuff. And he thought, let's call the band No 2 because I don't want to make a second record. So he called it No 2. That was his like no second album. And he made the record and wrote all these songs, and they put it out, and that was the end. And then he got dropped. And these are the things that happen over and over and over and over. People sort of lament nobody buys records anymore, and it's hard now, and it's different, and all this. And I'm like, man, good riddance, like to whatever was going on before with it. Like, because look at this shit. Like, we're sitting here right now. We got 1,250 people online. The whole beginning of my stream was a mess because of all their technical stuff, and it doesn't matter because it's this direct connection with people,
right?
With none of those jerks, you know, like involved in the. And I love.
I'm right with you. And, you know, I mean, I have so many stories. I could go on all fucking day. I mean, I had people tell me I couldn't have any female background singers on my record. I mean, and these are people that have made millions of dollars and made multi-platinum albums. So, no, I had people tell me, you know, things about, you know, race, about, you know, who can be in the band, who can't, and why.
Sure. That was a whole thing. I mean,
and you know, you're in trouble when you're in meetings and you're hearing this kind of stuff. You're just like, man. And then my whole thing was, I'll never forget. I would do a song, and they would say to me, "You sound too black." That was a thing, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I said, what about this person? And I remember saying, when Jamiroquai came out, I'm like, well, wait a minute. So what about that? You know? And they're like, oh yeah, but he's British.
Yeah.
I mean, they always had a fucking answer. They'd say
Right.
this ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
Completely ridiculous shit that would kill any innovation whatsoever, any artistic forward motion whatsoever. And then I point people, but what about him? And they'd be like, yeah, but. And I'm like, oh man, fuck me, I'm fucked. And so what happened to me, like I had all this great experience, and I was one of these people that I was like, you know, like, no, fuck you. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do this, goddammit. I'm gonna do it my way. And I'm not gonna just, you know, I've been told the worst shit. You can't sing, you can't this, you can't that. A guy came in the record company, I had a meeting, guy was gonna sign me and said, nah, he talks funny. I don't like the way he talks. So, you know, when the record business got fucked up, and suddenly I'm like, well, wait a minute, I can make my records. I built a fan base over the years from being signed to Geffen and being signed, you know, being in Poison and being part of Mr. Big, and making all these fucking albums. I built a level of interest.
Yeah.
If I can get this new music to them, maybe I can build it further. So the first record that I remember doing is this record, Into the Black, was the first record where I said, I am not, because I was taking money from indie labels and finance. I'm not taking a fucking dime from anybody. Because whenever you do that, no matter what, all those records before then, I still had people in my ear telling me what I can and can't do. You know what I'm saying? Because they're giving you money. You know? So they give you $100,000 to make a record. I would get 100,000, 150 grand, and I would make the record myself. And I'd live off that money for the year. But I still had to listen to what the fuck they wanted. I said, I'm not taking a dime. I'm going to make this record. To this day, that is probably my most celebrated album, is that Into the Black record. And I didn't take a dime from anybody.
Yeah,
you know
brilliant record. I was listening to that album yesterday, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And from there, then I was like, okay, I can do what the fuck I want. I can be me, and people are going to accept it, and I can live and survive as an artist. And that's what I did. And then I started going to Europe and touring. You know, I played so many fucking places in Italy. I spent so much time in Italy because I had an agent there that took a liking to me, and he booked me. I mean, I was in the mountain in a fucking castle in a courtyard. I'm like, who the hell's going to come here to hear music? And then suddenly all these people would show up.
Amazing.
You know? So riding in a van, you know, all over the place. So I did it.
Yeah, that you can do it alone, and you just, you know, whatever, independent promoter, you get a booking agent, and what the hell else do you need? You know, it's like, what do all these people that I'm cutting in and maybe borrowing some money from that maybe I don't need because I can figure out how to do it on my own.
Yep.
You know, and it's really powerful. I mean, that was for me, and this is a big part of it, is YouTube for me, big part of what I do, but the direct connection, you know, with people. I went out and did a series of guitar clinics. Well, it's been a minute now because of the pandemic and everything, but I find myself in Thailand and in Taiwan and in South Korea and then in Europe. I'm all over the place. And that was kind of my thing, was it's like, look, you don't need it. There's nobody in the way anymore to tell you that you're, you know, too old or too young, or your name's not cool, or your music isn't what people want to hear, all that crap. It's just your direct connection, and you will connect with your people now, whoever and it might be, you know, it's like that Your 1,000 Followers book I bring up sometimes. It's like, it's very powerful. It's like, if you can connect with those people all around the world and you have the tools to do it now, nothing's stopping you. Because all the stories are heartbreaking, you know? I mean, how can, you know, somebody throwing a tape at you? It's just right there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you just got to believe in what you're doing and just push through. You know, you got to put the work in. It just doesn't magically happen. It really just doesn't. You have to do the work, and you have to just keep doing the work, and you know, and you have to really want to do it, and then you get to a place where things can get easier, you know, and then it becomes a thing of maintenance. Like I'm here, I just don't want to fucking ruin it now, you know.
Yeah. Your story, I mean, about your record, and then, you know, realizing like, okay, I can do whatever I want now. I mean, it's just like, it's shown time and time again. Like when I think about Rush, right, that great Rush documentary that came out 8 years ago or so, where they talk about, you know, how the label, you know, was like, you guys have got to come up with a hit because this isn't happening. And they go in the studio and they do 2112. They're like, if we're going to die, we're going to die on our, die on the sword.
Yeah.
We're going to die by our own, hand.
Yeah.
and that just opens up their entire, the entire career, and it's brilliant. But yeah, I love it, man. I mean, it's brilliant because also what's happened now is, we're at the age where the industry might have said, oh, those guys are older or whatever. And it's like, none of that shit matters. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, I believe you could break a new artist if they're 60 years old, if they're connecting, or 70 or whatever. If they're connecting and they sing great or they play great, what difference does any of it make? They're gonna be people that it resonates with.
Right. That's right.
Let's see. Michele's there in the chat and says, can you please ask Richie about the Deep Purple tribute, according to New York, how it happened and how was the process? One of the best records ever.
Yeah, that's TM Stevens' record. I met TM through Stevie Salas, and I got to shut this door real quick. Hang on a second.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. We got 1,280 people online, folks. This is awesome. Thanks for being here. And I'm just really stoked that you're all here for this. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Are you there?
Yep.
Yeah. I met TM Stevens through Stevie Salas. And we did a deal, TM and I, where I went to Japan and played in his band. And then he went to Japan and then played in my band. Mm-hmm. So we were friends. And for people that don't know, he's just a fantastic bass player and singer, and played with Miles Davis and the Pretenders, and was it Joe Cocker? He was Joe Cocker or Tina Turner. It was Joe. He was his bass player. Anyway, he did a record called Deep Purple According to New York, and it was basically his interpretation of Deep Purple songs done like in a funk kind of way, heavy hard rock funk. Bernie Worrell was on there, who I learned a lot from, the keyboard player from Parliament Funkadelic. He used to call me Youngblood. And Cindy Blackman was on the record. Al Petrelli on the record. And it was great. I stayed at TM's house while we were there. We were driving in and out to New York. He was living in Jersey at the time. Mm. It's a fun record. I was probably about 25 years old when I did it. Oh, wow. And that's a weird thing to say. I was 25 years old, and I'm 51. I'm getting fucking old. It's strange. Because it doesn't seem like that long ago that I was at his house. I can remember being there and riding in the car, listening to all the stories. Yeah. Very strange. But yeah, that was a fun record, I haven't listened to it. I made the record. I never listened to it. It was very normal for me. I do something and I never go back. But
that's interesting. Do you find that that's usually the case? Like you don't go back unless you got to learn a song for a tour or something? Right.
Well, now lately I'm going back. Like I'll open a bottle of wine and with the pandemic and I'm fucking bored, so I'll start watching YouTube videos of myself. And sometimes I like it, and sometimes like, oh Jesus God, what were you thinking? Stuff like that.
Yeah, that's okay though. That's all of us, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Somebody's asking if you can talk us through. It said, John, and can you talk us through the last 3 minutes of Devil's Hand? Such a perfect setup, build up, and end. Very inspiring.
Talk through, like, how do you mean? What do you mean?
I don't know. I guess just the, very inspiring, great tones and vibe. I wish I wrote that, he says.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that happened. I've got songs that I hear on the radio sometimes. Man, that is just, I wish I wrote that. Like, that sounds like something I should have wrote. Right. I'm trying to think. Okay, so the end of the song, it's just F sharp minor and D.
Mm-hmm.
I play those. I do that a lot when I'm playing. That I'm singing the notes because I don't know. I'm a weird musician because I don't know a lot of patterns and like I see guys that can do all these kind of intricate patterns. I know all the modes and shit. And I know why the notes work, but I kind of use the force when I play. And that solo, I'm hearing melodies in my brain or my heart or my whatever the fuck, and I'm putting my fingers where the notes are on the guitar. You know, it sounds ridiculous to say that.
No,
but
no.
But that's kind of how I'm like. That's an improv solo, and I knew what I wanted to do. I love George Benson. One of the first concerts I ever saw, and to this day, I think he's the greatest guitar player ever. But you know, when George would get up and sing and play, I just love that sound. And so I knew I wanted to do something like that at the end of the song. So I set my microphone. I did it right here where I'm sitting, and I have my microphone.
Okay.
And then I have the guitar plugged into an amp that's downstairs, and then and I'm just kind of singing what I'm playing against the chords, and then that's what happened. I recorded it, and then a couple of times I fucked up, but I kept going. I knew I fucked up a few things, right?
Okay.
Nobody's perfect, and then I would listen back, and I'm like, all right, well, that wasn't a mistake. That worked. And then here's let me just drop in and fix something. I could do that too. Punch in. But that's basically how I work. I don't. I just kind of go for it.
You just sort of demonstrated, and it was brilliant. But as that connection of hearing the notes in your head, and you are a great singer, and so that connection of then that coming out through the guitar, getting.
That's the key.
And once again, it's like leaving the power on in your studio. The shortest point between point A and point B, I think, is what we're coming around to. If you can get that on the fingerboard, that's another way of.
That's true. Yeah, it is. And you said something. When my guitar playing changed when I started taking singing more seriously. And my guitar playing changed for the better. I actually grew as a guitar player, and it got better, and I wasn't practicing the instrument. It got better without practicing, just by the connection I had with myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's genius. I mean, that's gold right there. The number one thing is if you can, I think, connect those two things. I always tell people, like, if you're trying to come up with a part or a melody or the right solo, or put the guitar down and then listen to what you're going to play over. If
that's great.
Idea yet, and listen, and where do you go with it? And then now pick up the guitar and find those notes. But if you can do that instantly, that's what makes brilliant improvisers, I think.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. Let's see here. Pete's in the super chat there. He says, please come to Detroit. He says, for the love of God, please come to Detroit. I think we all want to get out there and play again, right? And he says, love to see you live and can't get to Japan. Can you tell me a little bit about Japan? Is one of my favorite places in the world, and I got a great fortune to go over there and do some touring with an artist that's based there. So I've gone there for I've spent about a year over there total. Like, I love that place, and when you go there, it must be just pandemonium, right?
Not really. No, it's funny. I hear that. Like I'm not big in Japan to the degree that I'm. I mean, when I play a concert, I have the most people in attendance would probably be in Buenos Aires, actually. Like when I tour around the world and I think about, Richie Kotzen shows, it always seems like Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, London, all those cities. The last time I played in New York was bigger than the crowd I had in Japan. So, what happened, I think, is that in the 90s, when I got dropped from Geffen, RCA was going to pick up my contract, and I fucked that up really good. There's a whole other story, but I totally fucked myself. And so then I started making these records like a lot of us were doing, where you take money from a Japanese label, because they would still give you major label type money for a while.
Right.
And if you were clever, you could take the money and make the record in your garage, right? And then you could live.
I've done this.
Yeah. Okay.
This happens.
So for a while in the 90s, I couldn't get arrested anywhere else. So they would have me, go over there and do some shows, come back. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then I joined Mr. Big. Now that band is big in Japan. They are as big as a rock band can get. They play 4 or 5 nights at Budokan. When I was in the band, we played the Millennium Countdown concert in the Osaka Dome. That's a stadium. And then we opened for Aerosmith. And the funny thing was, I had bought these pants. I used to spend stupid money on clothing back then. And I bought these pants that were like $3,000. And they were deer skin. And they had like bone sewed in on the side. I mean, I still have them. I can't fit into them. I wore them on the cover of the Motherhead's Family Reunion album cover. Anyway, these fucking pants were made for Steven Tyler. Okay. And he never picked them up. I guess this lady made them for him, and he never came to get them. And so they were in her shop, and I saw them, and they fit me. So I bought them. And I thought, well, I never wore these on stage. I only wore them in a photo shoot.
Okay.
And so I took him to Japan. I don't know where are these fucking things. And because Steven Tyler's, so he came in the dressing room before we went on. I said, hey, nice to meet you. I said, I'm wearing your pants. I said, this lady said she made these for you and you never picked them up. And he acted like it was true. Now, it could have been fucking bullshit, but he was like, oh, yeah, man, those are my pants, bro. Yeah, they look good on you, man. Good fit. Whatever he said. And that was that. But anyway, the point is, I was never big in Japan. You know, Mr. Big is big in Japan. You know, Paul, Billy, Eric, those guys are big in Japan.
Buenos Aires, though, that's a great place to.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love South America. You know.
Yeah, greatest crowds. It's like I always say, it's like the '70s down there. Like they're just so into it. Like
yeah, they appreciate proper rock and roll. Yeah,
definitely. That's a great story, though. About the pants, you made me think of Japan and the clothes of it. Like the rock clothes are alive in Japan. What's that store in Tokyo called Royal Flash? You know that store?
No. Is it Roppongi area?
It's in Shibuya, but it's like they got 3 floors, and the third floor is like you got to ask somebody to go up there, and you go up there and it looks like a dungeon, and it's just rock. Like everything up there is $3,000 and up. It's like $400 rock T-shirts, but all like crazy pieces. I mean, it looks like where Steven Tyler would or Keith Richards would go to.
That's cool.
Too. It's incredible stuff. Did you ever play? El Scott Music is asking. Did you ever play with Matt Starr in Mr. Big? I know Matt took over.
No, because that was no. I was in Mr. Big for only a couple of years, and it was like 1999. I joined and did a record, and then we did the Millennium concert and toured, and then the next year we did a record, and then we did a tour, and then it was over. So it was it was like a little blip in my longer than Poison. But still like a tiny moment in time. Yeah.
So what's next on the agenda? I mean, I guess it's all still slightly touch and go, but we're seeing the light at the end of this tunnel. And I'm wondering if you've got like plans with Adrian or for any like what would be on your wish list if
Well, the good news is that we planned on putting this record out in March, and it's coming out in March. That was the plan. When we finished it, because we wanted to tour in April. Now, obviously, we can't tour in April. So we're going to wait and see. We're going to get together with a rhythm section here pretty soon and just play just to see, how it feels and what we're in for, but ultimately we want to get out and do some live shows. So that would be, a priority. Actually, oddly, I've been talking to Stanley again, and we got a song that we're trying to finish together. Me and Stanley Clark and J.R. Robinson's on the track. So hopefully that comes. I'm probably not supposed to say anything, but whatever, it's there. So we'll see if we ever finish it. And it's pretty cool what we got going. So maybe that'll be something that evolves into something really cool down the road.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll probably make a record of my own at some point. We did a tour with the Winery Dogs in 2019, and we were talking about making a record. But the thing with the Winery Dogs, we got to be in the same room together, the three of us, just by the nature of how we create,
Okay.
And like, I'm not really interested in getting on a plane. I know Mike isn't really, and so we're separated. Mike's in PA, I'm in California, Billy's down in Nashville. So I think as soon as we can, safely, effectively get together, be nice to do something there as well.
Maybe the gauge is like if you can get the teeth in and get on an airplane, Still need the mask, because what's the point of the teeth if you know with the mask?
No you know what's funny about these teeth? I'm going to tell you something. I need to get a new set of teeth because my real teeth are starting to become like the ugly teeth that I put in. It's like a weird, sick the transformation that's happening to me. Right. And so I ordered a new set of teeth because the old ones don't fit right. And they gave me my money back. They said they won't ship them to California. Can you believe that? There's something in the mold that technically is not allowed. Isn't that weird?
Wow.
Yes. So I gotta have them sent, somewhere else and then go get them. I don't know what, it's a dilemma that I am facing.
Just that California tax again.
Yeah, there's always something there.
It's not just state tax. There's other things.
Exactly.
I should let you go soon because we've been going for a while, but I don't want to take all day. But there was just a couple more people here in the chat. This is last one. Can you ask Richie if you ever thought about a collaboration with Glenn Hughes? That's an interesting question.
Thought about it. I did it.
Did you?
Yeah, years ago in the 90s. We have we wrote a song called Stoned. That's on one of my records. I think it's on a record called Wave of Emotion, which, by the way, here's another record company bullshit thing. That record was never supposed to be called Wave of Emotion. The record was supposed to be called Degeneration. And this is back in 1995. And somehow somebody at the label didn't like the title. They found it offensive. I don't know why. And so they named the record that. Another funny thing is, and so anyway, I did work with Glenn, and then there's another song we wrote called Against the Grain that ended up on Glenn's record. So Glenn's a friend and an influence on me. So yeah, we work together. But here's another thing that labels like to do. They like to relicense and repackage your work. So years ago, I had some records that I sold the master rights, okay? And so what they do is they repackage it. So I had a song called I'm Coming Out, okay? And the song was about throwing dice because the first move at the crap table is the come out roll, all right? So the whole song, the lyrics are about throwing dice, which like my grandfather was a bookie. I have a long line of degenerate gamblers in my history. So the song is about throwing dice. So somebody gets this fucking record and repackages it. And it was on a record of mine called, I don't even remember what record it was on. They made a compilation record on Richie Kotzen, and they called the compilation record I'm Coming Out. And I didn't know this, but that is also something that you would say, like if you were coming out of the closet with your sexuality.
Right.
Right. Now, I never knew that when I wrote the song. I was 25 years old in 1995, and I liked to go to Vegas and throw dice. So I wrote a song, but now I've got a fucking album out there on the marketplace called I'm Coming Out. This is the kind of fucking shit that happens when the record companies control your work.
Got it. Yeah.
Would you want a record called I'm Coming Out?
I understand the dilemma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love women. I've been married, happily married. Been with Julia for almost 10 years.
Yeah, but then you face all these interview questions where it's like, you gotta I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about my song. It's
just, it's just the way it is.
Oh man. Okay, there's one last a loyal viewer of mine, Robert Valdez. Just wanted to know your current live rig guitars, amps. Like if you're gonna go out and play with Adrian, if you got a plan of what you would take on such
I'll take obviously the fly rig pedal, I'll take the Victory head, I'll take the red Strat, the white Strat, and I'll take the brown Telly. All signature stuff. If it doesn't have my name on it, I don't want to be bothered with it.
I like it. Well, this has been amazing, man. Thank you so much for joining me and the great stories. And I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. And YouTube gives me the ability to go through and edit out problems. So I will do that in the video once it's posted again. If anybody's watching the replay, I can go through and cut out the crappy bits at the beginning where I was having camera issues and we were trying to get connected and all that. I will do that. Hang out for a second and I'll say goodbye to you.
Okay.
But everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's been amazing. And, more guests coming soon. And please come back on Sundays. I appreciate you all being here, 11:30 every Sunday, Pacific time. Thanks again.